we got a chance to speak to the cast of season 2 of Prime Video's The Wheel of Time. This one is with Perrin himself, Marcus Rutherford. I grew up reading this stuff, and it's always such a relief when a show comes about and does it justice. And I
Oh,
think
man.
that was something that I took away from season 1, and I've been very excited about season 2. But to
Mm.
kick things off, I was wondering if you could start by telling me if there were any major differences between shooting season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, I mean, on just like a logistical level, I mean, there was kind of like a pandemic for season
Oh, well,
one.
of course.
Like, yeah, which kind of like, I think was obviously like really tricky and kind of like for the production and stuff. But I think it I could seek solace that it brought everyone together, and you had times where you'd stop and start. So I think in season two, having like that whole time to just kind of film all the way through was amazing, and we have that cohesion all the way through the season without having any sort of major interruptions. But I think on sort of like a content level, it felt just like a lot more mature and older, and I feel like the characters have grown up, and I feel like the costume and the writing and the sets kind of reflect that as well. It feels a lot older, a lot more lived in.
Well, that was my next question, because I don't know how it works in streaming, but I guess
Mm.
in traditional network television, there's always if you get season 2, you get a little more money, things get bigger and more elaborate. Was it like that? Was it bigger? Was it more elaborate?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, the finances are, it's not to do with it, but I
No,
think
but as an
like
actor, did
yeah,
you feel,
yeah,
yeah,
100%, man. Like I think we came and it felt like it needed to I think in the season one it felt like some kids that are like, want to go back home, and they're a bit like, where are we going? And there was a lot of world building to do. But I feel like season two, they kind of realized they're on this quest, and they've sort of like accepted their part in this sort of prophecy, and therefore they kind of have to go forward with it. And I feel like the range of different characters, cultures that come in, it just gets bigger. And I think when you read the books, there's just new people come in each chapter, and I feel like we've reflected that quite well.
yeah. Tell me this: whenever something like this comes about, whether it's Wheel of Time, whether it's The Lord of the
Mm,
Rings, whatever,
mm,
there's always a little bit of push and pull with the fans. And
mm,
admittedly, when I started watching the first season as well, I was like, oh, wait, where's this character? Or I really like this character.
mm.
And then of course I find out, oh, okay, they've been cast in season 2.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with trusting the plan
Mm,
and kind of going, okay, maybe the showrunner has a good idea. And I
yeah.
was wondering what it's like for you as an actor to trust in the plan, because these things are so big and epic in scale.
Mm. Yeah, I think totally. I think like Rafe and the producers, they see the long sort of project. And I think like
Right.
even as an actor, you can kind of see it by, season or episode by episode. And the fans who've been waiting so long, they can just kind of think, where's this person? What? And which is totally understandable. And I was reading the books at the time. But I think when you try and condense something into 8 episodes, when you've got these really cool characters and you think, actually, we're not going to be able to do it justice if it just comes in for this scene. So there's people and amazing characters that come in season two, and they're given the platform and the scenes and the time that they deserve. And I think they warrant a proper introduction. I think in season one, there was just so much to do, man. There were so many,
That was a lot.
yeah, there was a lot to kind of get off, a lot of like world building and stuff. And I think in season two, there's a lot of characters that people have probably been anticipating, but they've come in like a proper way that I think justifies sort of the status of their character and the world that they bring. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really exciting.
What is it like for you as an actor making high fantasy such as this, and does it affect your process? Because I feel, as a layman, it feels like there's a bit of, it's hyper real, it's almost
Mm,
theatrical and Shakespearean.
mm.
It doesn't feel like natural acting. And do you have to shift mindsets?
I think a little bit. I think I sort of realized in season one that there is a sort of a size to the performance that needs to be there. Especially someone like Perrin, who is quite introverted and quite small. There still is sort of like a heightened level of performance to fit into this world where there's magic and creatures and stuff. But I think what's been really lovely, especially about season two, is they do just feel like people. And then some of my favorite scenes are the ones where it's just two people talking by a fire or in an inn, and it feels like if you took the fantasy language out of it, it could just be two people talking at a party, or a family, a mum and a daughter, and they're the ones that I feel are really real, and they feel like that in the books. And it just happens that it's happening in this other universe. But yeah, I think you can take a lot of like natural kind of instincts from it and apply it to this sort of world. And then I think you have to be aware of the scale of the world you're in as well, and not play it too small.
Has it been, as someone who's, one tasked with acting in the show, but also tasked with promoting the show, has it been a challenge for you to convince people to get into fantasy? Like I thought, after the success of Game of Thrones, I thought, hey,
Mm,
people are going to be, they're going to get into this stuff, right?
mm,
But it hasn't actually happened in that way. It's
mm.
still nerds like me who are geeking out over shows like this. What's your go-to selling point when you're telling people, hey, you got to check out my show, Wheel of Time?
I
It's got
think
swords and magic and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's got, all the kind of ingredients of like high fantasy that people will always kind of love. But I think it does feel quite contemporary. I feel like, I go on set and I look at the cast, and it's not like a cast I've seen in fantasy before, if I'm being completely
Yeah,
honest.
for sure.
I grew up watching, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. This wasn't people who looked like me or anything like me when I
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think but it feels natural, and I feel like when you read the books, it's so expansive and there's so many cultures in it. It doesn't feel forced or anything like that. It feels like Robert Jordan's world, kind of fits to be shown on TV at this kind of scale at the moment. And I think what's quite cool about the Wheel of Time is that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think perhaps people who haven't read the books or aren't as familiar with it, it's just exciting because there's a lot of characters and there's so many opportunities to relate to the different characters. There's something for everyone in there. And it's got like battles, it's got magic, it's got creatures. And I think season two kind of packages that very nicely.
Hey, we didn't speak when you did season one, but I'm curious,
Mm.
and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but was reading the book something you felt like you had to do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of when you start something this big and there's that much source material there already, it would just feel like, yeah, weird to not delve into it. And I think, there was
Does it help or hurt though?
yeah, I mean, I had some big changes early on in my
Yeah.
career life. Yeah, so I think, you kind of realize, okay, this isn't going to be a page by page adaptation, and that's completely fine. So I understood that, but I think actually moving forward, it's been really nice to hop back to the books and actually, like you said, when characters come in at later stages and like storylines, kind of like their arcs still happen, but perhaps at a different kind of rate. Going back to the books and kind of like going back to them at a different stage has actually been amazing. And yeah, there's so much there. He can write about an inn for like 2 chapters, and like you
I
can't get that through the script. So it's just yeah.
I know, man. Like growing up, I was you'd have to wait years for books to come out.
Yeah,
And as a kid, you don't have patience for that sort of
yeah.
thing. But tell me this, in reading the books, and I think in approaching adaptations such as this, I guess my go-to argument with anyone or fan or otherwise is
Mm,
always that TV shows and movies have to be supplemental to the literature. The literature is there; you can read the books at any time.
mm,
But a slavish adaptation always feels like the wrong way to go. And I think
mm,
Rafe's got the right idea with
mm.
what he's doing with this because as a fan of the books, I'm still getting something new and different.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. I think well, even just for like Perrin, for example, I think, in the books you have these really intense sort of like chapters where it's all in his head. He's a
Head.
very
Yeah.
internal character, and like sort of adapting that to TV is just a little bit tricky just in terms of the time and how you kind of show it. So I think, there's kind of changes to the storyline that I think will kind of show to be really fruitful in understanding his journey later. And I think yeah, I think Rafe has really understood that. I think he's understood where the books, you can pay homage to them and it's kind of there on the page and you can just bring this straight in. But there's other things that actually, I think for this to be effective, we need to kind of perhaps tweak this and change this or kind of like implement it in a different way.
Yeah. There's just the right amount of fan service.
Yeah,
Uh,
amazing.
Man, this has been so much fun. I'm all out of
Thank you,
time,
man.
but thank you so much and congratulations on the show. And
Thank
I
you,
hear you
man.
guys have been renewed for season three, so I'm really
Yeah,
excited about
thank you
that.
so
So
much,
yeah,
man.
very
Appreciate
cool.
it. Thank you so much,
Cheers,
brother,
man.
for
Thank you
your
so
time.
much. Check out The Wheel of Time on Prime Video. It's a really good show that not enough people are paying attention to. Trust us. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. Sound off in the comments. and thank you so much for watching.